Did you see that? Did SpaceX just test the water-cooled steel plate? Where did Booster 9 go? Blue Origin plans to use aerospike engines. Rocket Lab recovers a booster. A certain Mars mission might be in trouble. And all of you, yes, you helped Why immensely. Want to know how and why? My name is Felix. Welcome to What About It? Let's dive right in. Starship updates. Another day, another Starship update. This time it's hard to believe how much has happened over the span of just a few days. Multiple systems tested, prototypes moving around, and SPM transporters driving there and back. What more could you ask for? Follow me as we explore this incredible place filled to the brim with new milestones. It's been a while since we started tracking the saga of the water-cooled steel plate, right? This plate, designed to handle the mind-boggling heat from 33 Raptor engines at liftoff, has the potential to totally change our concept of how launch pads are built. If it turns out to be a success, we're talking about a compact system requiring barely any maintenance. That on its own would be an absolute game changer. In the last episode, we feasted our eyes on some stunning aerial shots that proved all the parts needed for this system were already in place. After conducting some basic purge tests with the high-pressure system, we were on pins and needles waiting for the first drops of water to leak from the plate. Luckily for us, our wait was short-lived. Just as the finishing touches were being put on our previous video, up went Mechazilla's arms, a good sign that something big was about to happen. It didn't seem like much at first, but then, boom! The valves were fully opened and water exploded from hundreds, if not thousands, of tiny holes. Can you imagine how sick a static fire or a launch will look with this system? The test lasted a mere 30 seconds. Short, but more than enough time even for some lengthy engine tests. And the best part, it looks like the system was running at half of its full power, maybe even only a third. Looking at another angle, it's evident that pressure was only released from the valves on top of the two big tanks. Which means that the water probably came from just one pipe connected to the medium-sized plate. This suggests there's a ton of power to spare, perfect for cranking the system up to 11. It seems that during this test, the water was just left to flow, as there was no sign of any collection system in place. If SpaceX wants to run these tests more frequently, they might need a booster to evaporate some of that water. Now, it looks like the stage might be set for a full throttle test to ensure the design is solid before bringing in a prototype for testing. To prepare for this, workers have started removing some of the scaffolding visible on one of the orbital launch mount's legs to prevent the system's intense pressure from blasting it off. Curiously, that wasn't the only key component of the orbital launch mount that was recently tested. Check this out. On the evening of July 18th, during a scheduled road closure, the orbital tank farm whirred back to life, generating some pretty clouds of nitrogen. Notably, venting was spotted from the ship's quick disconnect arm, marking its first activity since the orbital test flight. A few minutes later, the Firex system launched a torrent of water onto the launch pad in a brief test lasting only a handful of seconds. Given that it's been a while since this system was used, it may be useful to refresh your memory. So what's Firex? During the early testing stages of the orbital launch mount, every static fire presented a considerable risk. It seemed as if the launch complex had a tendency towards spontaneously combusting everything around it. This issue posed a significant challenge because securing the vehicle and reopening the road post-testing took several hours. Only after which the fire department could move in to extinguish any flames. To tackle this, SpaceX decided to add an extra ring under the launch deck. This is Firex, a colossal fire extinguisher that mixes nitrogen and water. As you may imagine, this component is absolutely vital for enabling rapid testing operations at Starbase. Focusing back on the launch mount, the teams are preparing to lay down the final layer of fondant for added protection to the mount's base. As more components undergo testing, it's safe to say the launch complex is revving back into action. Get ready, because we're about to enter a period of excitement in the next few months. Of course, you all still need the most important component, the prototype itself, which brings us to the production site located 3.2 kilometers or 2 freedom miles away. Here we expected the rollout of Booster 9, which kind of happened but not quite as we had hoped. On July 18th, a pair of SPM transporters rolled into the megabay, placing the prototype onto their broad shoulders. The payload made its way down the ring yard and you'd have expected it to proceed to the launch site, right? Well, not quite. Booster 9 took an unexpected detour, ending up at the rocket garden instead. Interestingly, despite the prototype still lacking its hot staging hardware, there were a few modifications that hadn't been present when the booster last entered megabay. The most glaring modification is undoubtedly the addition of 33 Raptor engines meticulously installed over several weeks. As you can see, they are thoroughly shielded and the protective covering itself seems to sport a different design compared to the one on Booster 7. Elon Musk had previously stated that Booster 9 was designed with engine shielding in mind, indicating an improved and tighter fit to prevent damage to neighboring engines in the event of an explosion. Moving upwards, an intriguing alteration caught our eye. A ring of small vents has been welded to the aft section of the booster. While the imagery suggests these are simple valves, their actual purpose remains enigmatic. It seems unlikely that they are meant for venting liquid oxygen, as the Super Heavy already has ports for this task situated beneath it. Could it possibly be related to the separation process, like a thruster pushing the booster away from the ship? I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please feel free to share them in the comment section down below. Finally, the rollout of the booster presented an ideal opportunity to inspect the pipe or tank installed a few days ago and mentioned in the last episode. However, it turned out to be a bit of a non-event, as an aerodynamic shroud obscured the entire assembly. This mystery, it seems, will have to wait for another day. We're hoping that Booster 9's stay in the rocket garden will be short-lived, given that the launch site is nearing completion of its final certification tests. Okay, now look at this. Recently, there's been a buzzing debate about this new tank standing in the ring yard. Its construction is refreshingly uncomplicated, featuring an aft ring, a payload bay, and an unusual ring with 24 holes. We'd initially summarized that this top ring could be part of a Starship lunar lander mock-up or even the crucial ring for a hot staging, but these theories have kind of lost traction. At the top of this prototype is a specialized plate designed to connect it to the nose cone cage used to simulate the forces a Starship will face at max Q. So if not for hot staging, what's the function of this upper ring? Some propose it could serve as a tie point for ropes, allowing for additional compression force during testing, something that previously was done using a device dubbed the Can Crusher. I, for one, am not fully convinced of this theory, but time will tell who had the right idea. We are hopeful that this tank's inaugural test at Massey's will occur in the not too distant future. Speaking of Massey's, let's journey to this former shooting range located 9 kilometers or 5.5 miles away, now repurposed as a test site. Not too long ago, the contender for the third Starship flight, Booster 10, was relocated here. Upon arrival, it was stationed at the new booster cryostand and connected to the ground support equipment. You know what that means. It wasn't a long wait before testing started, with the prototype filled with liquid nitrogen on July 19th. And the test appeared to go without a problem. Positioned adjacent to this prototype is a part of the future booster puck shocker. Similar to the Raptor thrust rams used at suborbital pads A and B, a larger version of this contraption will emulate the thrust of up to 33 Raptor engines. This test stand will allow for prolonged cryogenic tests without hindering access to the launch site, truly a case of having your cake and eating it too. Lastly, on the evening of July 19th, an intriguing development took place. See this ship test stand at Massey's? That night it was dismantled, placed on an SPMT and swiftly transported away. A few minutes later, this stand was spotted on Highway 4, with its journey's end being the build site. We anticipate that a ship prototype will be mounted on this test stand, possibly ship 27 or 28, and then the entire assembly will return to Massey's for further testing. Why would SpaceX opt for such an unconventional approach? It's simple. The current Massey's site lacks a crane capable of hoisting a complete ship or booster. So if our assumption pans out, this could be seen as an ingenious workaround. What do you think? Which prototype will be tested at Massey's next? Ship 27, 28, or perhaps an entirely different one? Place your bets in the comments. I love reading your ideas, and while you're at it, hit that like button, subscribe, share this video with your family and friends, and consider becoming a wise supporter. For just $1 per month, you get access to daily Starbase photo galleries from Chief, over 100 high-quality photos every single day, and countless other extras on top. No matter how much you decide to give, everyone gets the same supporter content and access. You decide what you want to give. The link to our Patreon page is in the description. Massive shout out to the thousands who already support us. You guys allow our steadily growing team to work their dream jobs. You rock! In the previous episode, we delved into the aborted Starlink launch, which, despite the initial setback, eventually accomplished the successful orbit insertion of the final batch of Starlink V1.5s and the 16th landing of booster B1060. Fate often presents us with lessons of irony, showing that even the rarest of events can reoccur. Such was the case with Starlink Group 615, which suffered an abort just a mere 5 seconds before the ignition. The July 18th attempt was fraught with problems right from the get-go. Initially, the liftoff time was moved deeper into the launch window due to a detected anomaly with the second stage. The weather too was less than cooperative, as evidenced by the barely visible rocket, although Falcon 9 has proven it can launch in even harsher conditions. During the stream, no reason was given as to what exactly went wrong. Interestingly, with SpaceX transitioning to deploying only V2 mini Starlinks, this Falcon only had a modest payload of 15 satellites on board. This can primarily be attributed to this launch's inclination of 43 degrees, needing some energy-intensive maneuvers. Thankfully, during the subsequent launch window on July 19th, Falcon 9 performed a flawless ascent. The payload was successfully deployed in orbit, and booster B1071 marked its 10th reflight with a triumphant landing on the Of Course I Still Love You drone ship. Reportedly, SpaceX told its investors that they've projected their revenue for this year to hit the $8 billion mark, doubling its earnings of 2022. A significant contributor to this surge is undoubtedly Starlink. Even in its deployment phase, it already boasts over 1.5 million users, estimated to generate up to $2 billion this year. You should keep this in mind when questioning the funding for Starbase. While SpaceX is collecting the fruits of their work, Rocket Lab is trying to join in on the reusability hype train. That's why during the last mission, Baby Come Back, they've opted for a booster recovery. Launched on July 18th, the mission carried 7 payloads for NASA, Spaceflight Laboratory, and Spire Global. Rocket Lab tweeted an awe-inspiring video of a stage separation in which you can see the spring-loaded separation mechanism in action. Separation of all of the payloads went without a hitch, meaning the main objective of this mission was a success. As the satellites were on their way to space, the booster used in this mission was coming back down to Earth. Of course, unlike Falcon 9, here Rocket Lab uses a simpler solution. A parachute allows the first stage to descend into the ocean slowly. Meanwhile, a recovery ship was already positioned close to the landing zone. As soon as the booster made its oceanic touchdown, the vessel promptly approached, secured it, and started the journey back to port. The objective was to start the desalination procedures as swiftly as possible, given that with every passing hour, the likelihood of successful component recovery decreases. Salt water is extremely corrosive. It remains uncertain if Rocket Lab intends to fly an entire booster again at some point. One thing though is certain: thanks to enhanced water sealing measures, at least one reused Rutherford engine should fly by the end of this year. While the spectacle of capturing a booster with a helicopter-borne hook was undeniably impressive, it was also a dangerous operation, endangering the pilot's life with each attempt. Therefore, at least for now, Rocket Lab has decided to transition to maritime recovery. On the flip side, we have enterprises like Blue Origin, who envision not only full reusability for the first stage, but also for the second one. Are you a passionate space enthusiast, eager for groundbreaking advancements? Look no further, as Incogni, today's video sponsor, has got you covered. Are you wary of your personal information being scattered across the vast expanse of the internet? Fed up with incessant robocalls, spam emails, and relentless targeted advertising? Data brokers voraciously consume every fragment of your online identity, pixel by pixel, until they possess your complete profile. But fear not, for I've found a solution. Companies collect your data, then sell it to brokers who distribute it far and wide. Thankfully, those brokers must delete your data upon request. Just where to even start? Incogni steps in as your guardian of privacy, ensuring its utmost protection. Simply create an account, authorize Incogni to act on your behalf, and relax as they handle everything for you. System fixed. They've sweetened the deal. The first 100 people to use my promo code Felix at incogni.com/Felix will enjoy a whopping 60% off instead of 20%. Protect your privacy and support your passion for exploration. Join Incogni today. For some time now, numerous speculations surrounded the Jarvis project, a fully reusable second stage for New Glenn that somewhat resembles the first Starship prototypes. In the typical fashion of Blue Origin, minimal information was made available to the public, leaving us to piece together the impossible puzzle. However, it seems like we finally gained some more solid information, albeit it may turn out to be nothing substantial. This comes from Jeff Bezos' company filing a patent for a fully reusable upper rocket stage equipped with, now get this, an aerospike engine. Speaking of supporter money and new positions on the team, Elliot, our new very own 3D artist for Y, made this for you. Thank you, patrons and YouTube members. Say hi to him in the comments. You enable him to do this for you. The concept hinges on a rocket body fitted with a heat shield at its aft section. This shield would incorporate a ring of nozzles that would generate the aerospike effect. Now you might ask, why are aerospikes so exciting? Well, they have a couple of interesting advantages, like consistent efficiency, meaning that such an engine behaves similarly both in space and within Earth's atmosphere. Plus, these engines can be relatively lightweight and compact. The challenge with aerospikes, however, lies in cooling such an engine effectively and actually developing it, as they are known for being difficult to work with. Furthermore, no aerospike has ever been actually tested in space on a full-scale vehicle. The patent suggests that these engines could be utilized for propulsive landing, and notably, the heat shield itself would be partially actively cooled. The complete vehicle somewhat resembles a hopper similar to the one from Stoke Space, with the main difference being that the one from Stoke Space actually exists. Salty, I know. While this is certainly exciting, it's important to remember that numerous companies file countless patents that ultimately go nowhere. But who knows, perhaps this one will be the future of New Glenn. We'll keep reporting for you. For additional updates on this and other related topics, consider following me on Twitter at Felix Schlang. Lastly, the Mars sample return mission appears to be encountering some budget issues. As its name suggests, this mission aims to retrieve a piece of the red planet for study on Earth, hoping that we can learn more about this rusty place or even discover some signs of previous life there. In its full-fledged form, this collaborative mission between NASA and ESA would require a robotic lander, a pair of drone helicopters similar to Ingenuity, and a compact ascent vehicle. Not to mention a return orbiter responsible for transporting the samples back to Earth. That's a lot of stuff. As you can imagine, this is an incredibly ambitious endeavor. While it is doable from a technical standpoint, it appears to be significantly more costly than what the government is willing to give. Despite NASA's request for nearly $1 billion to develop the mission in 2024, the Senate instead offered a mere $300 million. It also stipulated that if the total mission cost exceeds $5.3 billion, the allocated $300 million would be redirected to the Artemis program. The problem here is that NASA's projected costs are already in the ballpark of $8 to $9 billion. meaning that in the worst case scenario, the whole thing might even get cancelled altogether. Currently, the only plausible path forward for this mission requires scaling back its objectives, such as eliminating the backup helicopters. That is, unless NASA will somehow find a way to fit everything within the budget constraints, which frankly appears to be impossible at this point. If the mission proceeds as planned, the lander is expected to be launched in 2028. What do you think? Is there a point in doing the Mars sample return mission, or is there a better alternative that would save us some money? Maybe NASA should opt for a less ambitious variant of this mission. Maybe a Starship could help earlier and cheaper. Leave your opinions in the comments. That's it for today. Remember to smash the like button and subscribe for more awesome content. Check out our epic shirts in your favorite Space Nerd store. Link is in the description. And if you want to get even smarter about space and rockets, watch this video next to continue your journey. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next episode. When booster friend. In the oh. Yeah.